You're listening to the Career Diaries with Brianna or Sherry, where each week we laugh and learn with industry experts, talk through the highs and lows of their career journeys, and unlock the secrets to career success in any field. Email bri@careerdiariespodcast.com. That's BRI@careerdiariespodcast.com with your burning career questions to get them answered on the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Career Diaries podcast. I am your host, Brianna Autry, and I'm joined today by George Kramb. He is the co-founder of PatientPartner. Welcome to the podcast, George.
Hey, Brianna. Good to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, happy to have you. So I wanted to tell you that I actually never had a rule that I wouldn't have founders on this podcast.
Are we breaking the rules?
Already breaking the rule at episode like 5 or whatever. I just wanted everything to be very accessible to people listening in. And I think like often founders get the attention and the employees don't get as much. So the employees don't get as much exposure on things like podcasts or articles, etc. So, but what made you stand out to me is your background and how you became a founder. And I actually find it to be very accessible. So I wanted people who were interested in starting their own business to kind of hear from you, or maybe people who even just want to join a startup, right? In the early days, kind of learn what that's like from you.
No, I actually do agree with what you said though. It's like so many podcasts out there are just like founder driven, like, it's like kind of idolizing founders. And truthfully, being in the seat, man, I don't feel like I should be idolized. Well, but my background, you are right. Like I came from just like everyday type of job, and kind of made the leap of faith into the founder role. But yeah, happy to share my experiences and happy to kind of share a little bit about and I'll be totally transparent and truthful, just emotional, the emotional side of it. And then, also just being scared of like, holy crap, I'm leaving something that's pretty like stable might be the right word, but yeah, excited to kind of share more.
Cool. That's super refreshing. So let's go back to school. What'd you go to school for? Where'd you go to school?
Yeah, I went to University of Oregon, and honestly, I always like thought when I was in school, like, oh, I'll get a business degree and kind of do that path. Found out I wasn't smart enough for the business school, so I never got accepted. And so my decision tree from there was like, okay, business school is not accepted. I'm not going to stick around in college and continue to try to apply. Like, what's the next thing that I can do? And it was like economics degree. I'm like, sure, sign me up. I'll do it. So I ended up graduating with like a degree in economics, and I minored in business, out of all things.
All right. Well, at least you were able to come into the world with a level of understanding of business. Arguably economics is a better, wider scope of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but even in school, like the economics degree, like the classes you take, like they do not apply. It was like, you're running regressions on like data and stuff like that. And I remember taking this one class, forget the class was. We were literally running regressions in this like program. I think it was called like Stata or something like that. But I was confused doing it. And I was like, who the hell actually does this stuff? Because I'm like, this is not only boring as hell, but like, I can't even make sense of this. And so I'm like, finishing these reports, like submitting them, going like, I hope I did that right. Like, because I really had no clue.
I'm sure economists feel the same way who do this for a living. And I'm of the belief that your major isn't super important in college.
Oh,
I think it's this could be cliche, but college is really about the networking, the experiences. I think the location of where you go to school is also really important. Like I wouldn't have gotten into tech if I hadn't gone to San Francisco State, and so, yeah, I think the major is not super relevant.
yeah. The network side of things is ultimately how I got my first job out of college.
Tell me about that.
So yeah, when I was in school, I my parents like, you got to get a job. So I'm like, all right, I'll get a job. And, I grew up, I played like the kind of the foo sports. So like in high school, I was like on the surf team and I was on the golf team. And so surfing was kind of out of the question in Oregon. But I was like, are there like country clubs or a golf course around here that I can go and like, I don't know, pick up balls on the range or something like that, do something fun. And I was able to actually get a pretty cool job in college. I worked at Eugene Country Club and I was a bag boy and a caddy. And so I just spent like all day long, like when I wasn't in school, like working. And I just got to hang out with these members at Eugene Country Club. And, whether it was caddying or like refilling their balls or cleaning their clubs, but it allowed me to do a lot of like informational interviews with like, successful people.
Yeah.
And that's really where I like kind of got my itch to go into the medical field. Because I would interview and caddy and would talk to all these members and like lawyers and all this stuff. I'm like listening to lawyers' jobs. I'm like, that's definitely what I don't want to do. So I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, very easy for me to say no to that one. But there was this one member that I remember he'd always drive into the club with his like fancy car and he'd come out of his car and he'd be in like medical scrubs, like running into the locker room to change to go play. And I remember talking to him like, Curtis, like, dude, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I sell stuff. And I'm like, what do you sell? And he's like, oh, I sell like medical devices. And I'm like, okay, like, why are you in scrubs, man? He's like, oh, I'm in the operating room. And I was like, okay, this is really interesting. So he was like, yeah, I go in the operating room and I help out surgeons implanting products. And I'm like, dude, this sounds sweet. And I'm like, tell me more about your job. Like I drive around all day long, like constantly in different hospitals and calling on physicians. And I'm like, this sounds like something kind of fun and cool. And so that was really my starting point. Like, okay, I want to see if this is right for me. So when I graduated, I got my first job in medical sales. I was selling like braces.
Everyone needs those.
Yeah, yeah, but it was a horrible job. Got it. I had to I moved to Portland, Oregon after college, and I was driving all around like Portland and even in the like South Washington. I kid you not, I'd have to drive to people's houses and fit them for knee braces.
Oh,
And
homes in their homes.
yeah, yeah, so I'd have to go to people's houses. And yeah, I walked into some like bizarre, like hoarders, like people. Like then I also saw like beautiful houses, but like majority of it was like people in like trailer parks and hoarders. And I walk into some of these houses and I'm just like, I don't want to touch a thing in here. Like, oh my god, yeah, it was so nasty. Um, but that kind of got my foot in the door, and from there, then I was able to kind of like move into the surgical setting and transition over to like actually medical device sales and got my first job with a company called Arthrex doing sports medicine. So think of like ACL, rotator cuff repairs, things like that.
That's kind of interesting. That's cool because at least you get to, I imagine you're interested in sport, right?
Yeah, it is. Like I'd watch like football and like see somebody tear their ACL and I go, I know how to repair that.
That's pretty
You know?
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what was that sort of your first foray into what eventually led to you starting your current business?
Yes and no. So, how Patient Partner got started was kind of a byproduct of my personal life and professional life kind of meeting at one point. And so, from Arthrex, I kind of bounced around to some other companies but with that job, like I always told people I was like the insider in healthcare. Like anytime
Mm.
I got sick, my kids got sick, we never had to go to a doctor. Like I had 200 personal cell phone numbers of physicians, right? And so yeah, I would like FaceTime doctors, call them like, hey, my kid has X, Y, and Z. Can you send a script to CVS for me, right? Um, but it's about 4 or 5 years ago, after our second kid, sadly, my wife was diagnosed with thyroid cancer.
Oh,
And yeah, it was kind of a, out of the blue type of thing. And I remember when we met with the oncologist, he like kind of a funky dude. He walks into the room and like, "Hey, I got good news and bad news. Bad news, yes, the results came back. It's thyroid cancer. But good news, hey, it's thyroid cancer. It's like the most treatable cancer you can get." And he like laid out like 9 options for like treatment. It's like,
Interesting. Bedside manner.
I know, right? He's like, "What do you guys wanna do?" And I remember I was like, "Doc, I don't know. You tell me, man. Like, that's why we're here." And and so to make a long story short, like a couple days after that, I got called into clinic with one of my doctors for work. And he was like, "George, can you explain to this patient what a knee replacement is?" I'm like, "Yeah." Walking this patient through it. And the patient looks at the doc, goes, "Doc, like, I'm terrified of having this procedure.
Mm,
And what would be really helpful is do you have a past knee replacement patient they can connect me with?" And I remember sitting in that, like, stupid little swiggly chair, that circle one. I'm
yeah.
like, "That's what I need." So I left, I called the oncologist. I'm like, "Hey, do you have another mom that went through the same treatment that my wife's thinking about going through? And can we
Mm.
talk?" And that was really kind of like the genesis behind Patient Partner.
I love that. And it's crazy that that hasn't been around for
Yeah.
long because, there's all these places that you can sort of search for that, but to have one thing that's dedicated to that is incredible. And I've had family with a myriad of health issues from, cancer to, back issues to what have you. And um, it would have been very nice at those times to be connected to other people who had gone through the same thing and come out the other side.
Yeah. It's like we kinda laugh here in the office, like, what we're doing is not necessarily super novel. Like, we're really just trying to make a network accessible to everybody. Like, when somebody gets sick in your family, like, you're limited to your network. You're like, "Okay, who do I know that has this condition?" Right? And so that's why people go onto, like, a Facebook group or Reddit or Instagram. And I was thinking, like, why don't we build a place where, like, that network is accessible to everybody, right? Um,
Yeah, and monitored and managed in a way that is, like, specific to those needs, right? Because if you post that
Correct.
on, you get some weird trolls, work.
No, 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 no. So, yeah, every mentor, like, we call experienced patients mentors on our platform. Yeah, they have to go through, like, a serious vetting and training process, and we make sure that there's guardrails because we want this to be a positive experience. We don't want this to be something super negative. Like, going through healthcare having a healthcare diagnosis is already stressful enough, and if you're gonna take this, like, courageous step to, like, "I wanna go find somebody," we want them to be supportive, right? And so we really make sure and do our best to make sure that there's a very positive outlook on the platform.
Wow, that's incredible, and I already have someone in mind for you. My cousin has she had her colon removed and has an ileostomy bag.
Yeah.
So, she definitely is someone who she's always trying to help other people with those issues, so I'll refer her into you guys ASAP.
Cool.
Um, yeah, awesome, and so I wanna get back, you were saying that your wife and you had young children at the time when she was diagnosed. You had kids pretty young, right? How did that propel you to start this sooner, or did it kind of make you more apprehensive to do it? Like, what's the journey there?
Yeah, so this is I actually really like talking about this because it's like it's something that I try to mentor other dads and other fathers, especially at a young age. So, yeah, when I graduated, I was dating my wife at the time. We're not married, but, I she got pregnant, and she was still in school. I think she was 19 or 20, and
Wow.
yeah, and so, we both kinda looked at each other, we're like, "Hey, we're in this, like, we're gonna do it," right? And I remember when we found that out, I I went and told my boss at the time, like, "Hey, by the way, my girlfriend's pregnant, like, just wanna let you know, like, I'll be kind of going to some appointments, but I'm all in," right? He ended up firing me, like 2 months later.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, serious. So,
because of
we
this.
uh, there's a they try to protect themselves, but ultimately it was like I'm very happy looking back on it now. Like, I did not fit well there. And, but, when you're 22 years old and you're broke, it's like, "Oh
Or
my
a
god."
22-year-old father, like,
Yeah,
soon to be father who does that.
yeah.
Company for you, obviously, but
But, but so, yeah, we had kids at a young age, and I mean, we struggled. When Maverick, my son, was born, like, we were on the, like, Medi-Cal, like, insurance, like, like, we were, like, on all, like, we were, like, as below the poverty line, right? I didn't have a job, she didn't work, and we were trying to figure this out. And the thing that was really difficult to make the leap and do, the entrepreneurial, um, like, space was I started, but I looked at myself like, "Hey, I gotta provide for my family." Like, I have this kid, I have my girlfriend at the time, and I kinda went heads down in work, and so I was actually able to climb and become very successful as a medical device rep, to
Mm.
the point where my kids were going to private school. My wife wasn't looking at price tags anymore. Like, we were very, very, very comfortable.
Mm.
And when I told her, I was like, "Hey, I wanna quit my job and start this company," her natural reaction was like, "I don't wanna go back to where we were."
Yeah.
Right? And, like, we had a lot of discussions about it, but she's she's been incredibly supportive. And even with starting this business, there's been ups and downs. Like, I went to even start the business, I had to go, like, pretty much, like, a year without paying myself.
Yeah.
And, we had a piggy bank that we were putting money away in, and to eventually buy a house.
Wow.
And we were, I kid you not, we were, like, putting offers out on houses, and then I talked to her, I was like, "We can't buy a house right now. Like, we need
Yeah.
the money to keep the family alive because I wanna start a business." Like,
That's a
talk
tough.
about talk about somebody who's, backing behind you, right?
Yeah.
Imagine agreeing to that. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. More power to her for being supportive, and your relationship is a testament to, like, you can come out the other side of those decisions, and her backing you ultimately ended in your happiness, her happiness, like the happiness of your family. So
Yeah. But it's not easy though. It's like kinda going back to what I said at the beginning, it's being able to take that leap of comfortability, like secure job, like, oh, we were making great money and it's all this stuff, to then going, "Hey, I'm gonna make no money." And not only that, but like everything that we saved, we're gonna have to use it to keep the family until I figure out how to make this company work.
we're going to be stressed out all the time and working crazy hours and like,
Yeah. We had 2 kids at the time, and so it's like juggling kids. We now have 3 kids, but yeah, it's it was for the faint of heart, but I always the reason why I tell, I help mentor, like, young fathers is, like, having children and becoming a father and becoming a parent in general, like, it shapes you and helps you and gives you a skill set that you need to actually run a business. Like, the things that I've learned from being a parent has prepared me to actually take that leap and actually better suited me to become a better entrepreneur.
okay. And what are some of the ways where that's the case?
So, a lot of it is revolved around, you look at when you have a child, right? And when you have a young baby, they're constantly in need at all hours, right? And so you become very normalized, and your body adapts to this ability to, like, I need to be on and with my child at all hours. Like, you're up at 3 in the morning, you're up at 6 in the morning, they're screaming at you. And so you're constantly in this, like, state of, like, exhaustion and frustration. But over time, it becomes normalized. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
people, and it's like I go to a party or something like that, and all these kids are screaming, and I'm just talking, and people are like, "Dude, how do you do that?" It's like, "Dog, I've been in screaming rooms for 8 years, man." You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't faze me anymore. Um, and then another piece of it too is, you have, like, even though these are just, like, very event-based, situations, but, like, your kids put you in crappy situations all the time,
Mm.
right? Parent is come course correct. Whether even as baby, or even when they're like starting to grow up a little bit more, they're, like my son Maverick, he does these things that I'm just like, oh my God, okay, we have to like, you're coming with me. We have to go and apologize to the neighbor because you broke the. It's like, whatever it is. All of these things help you because it's like problems arise as in a business. And if you freak out and you feel like everything's a fire drill, like you're not gonna succeed. You need to be like very cool and collected and calm as you navigate a lot of these problems. As an entrepreneur, when you start a business, 94% of everything you do is a problem. Like, like you never get it right, constantly battling, and you have to be very comfortable being uncomfortable. And learned that at the age of.
Damn. Well, that's super illuminating. So where is Patient Partner at right now? Like, do you guys take like traditional funding? Did you go like the private funding route? Like, how did you guys monetize this?
Yeah. So when truthfully, it took about like a year to figure out the business. And because I had a conviction, like one, like, I don't think patients should ever pay for this. Like we can't monetize through patients. I think this is a right that every patient should have. Right. So I'm like, I told the entire team, like, we're not charging people. We're not. And so I look back and what are the other areas of healthcare that can join in on this platform, provide value back to patients? They would be able to then pay for that.
Mm.
And so that's where we started gaining traction. And a lot of it was learned through the engagements we were seeing at the early stages. Like when people would just sign up and like we would connect them to somebody, we would do these like post conversational interviews for like, what did you talk about? What was the best point of the conversation? We're starting to like understand like what exactly they were discussing. And we soon learned that majority of these discussions were actually, a lot of them revolved around products being used. And so like, let's say somebody has diabetes, right? And they'll say, oh yeah, I, started on drug A. Oh, I hated XYZ side effects of it. I found drug B, right? Oh my God, it's been great. Like not only do I manage my A1C levels, but I don't get boom, 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 boom. And we're like, okay, this is fascinating. People are wanting to talk with other people similar to them about their experience with products. Like that's a monetization opportunity. And so that's really how we started. And that's our business today is we work with industry and helping provide real, raw, authentic connections to patients who are currently taking their products. But going back to answer your question, it took us about a year to figure that out.
Right.
Did that. I wanted to try to raise some capital. And this is actually a funny story. So I started raising capital at the end of 2019, and then in 2020, it was on Valentine's Day. It was February 14th, 2020. I got a term sheet from an investor for $1 million. I was like, holy shit. Like somebody actually gave me money. This is insane. And I made the dumbest mistake of, I'm going to negotiate this term sheet.
Not in 2020.
Yeah. So
Time to raise funding.
so I started negotiating it, and my co-founder and I, we were literally working out of his house. We couldn't afford an office right at that. So I remember we were sitting in his kitchen, and it was like right around the beginning of March, and we start seeing all the news headlines about like COVID, things are shutting down, and we look at each other, we're like, dude, we have to sign this, and we have to get the money in before he changes his mind. And so we call the investor back, and we were like, hey, we're all good here, man. We'll just sign this. We'll get this done. And he's like, George, things have changed. I'm like, no, no. He goes, look, I'll give you $250K.
Oh,
If you can go and raise more money, we'll match it up to our $1 million. And so I was like, oh shit. So my business partner and I were like, all right, dude, we're going to do this. Fuck it. Like, we're going to fucking do this. And so we hit the wires over 250K. We don't pay ourselves again. And we started like, I'm like, hey, we got to hire an engineer. Like both Pat and I were not engineers. Like we need to build this product. Like right now it's running off of like a Wix website. We can't do that.
Give that engineer all your money.
Basically, yeah. So I kind of had to, finagle. So we had a term sheet for $1 million. So I told the engineer, I'm like, hey, yeah, we got a term sheet for $1 million. Right.
Why you had that?
Oh God. I know. It was definitely a white lie.
Yeah.
But was able to actually hire our CTO. He lived in the Bay Area, moved down to San Diego with us.
Nice.
Yeah. Built our first iteration of the product. And then I was like, dude, we need to go and sell something. That's what we need to do. And so put on my sales hat and did what I did best. And I actually was able to sign our first client, which was Medtronic, a big medical device company, within like a handful of months. And I think it was like a $300,000 contract, something like that. I went back to our investor. I'm like, hey, look at this. And he's like, how much money do you need? And I'm like, $2 million. He's like, all right, I'll wire it tomorrow. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I know. So then he came all in. Yeah, he went all in.
I love that. So you're still with that one investor.
Yeah.
And then plans for expansion and growth. What should people look for?
Yeah. So we are raising money now. We're raising more capital. Never ending. I feel like I'm always raising capital. But the thing that I'm most excited about is, so we see a lot of interactions on our platform. We know a lot about each one of our users. The feature that I'm really excited about is called patient pathways, in which, let's say you get diagnosed with something new, right? And you have let's say you have a profile on our product. You can go into your profile and say, I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease, whatever it is, right? And patient pathways will pop up and we say, hey, Brianna, there's let's say there's 10 other users on our platform that look very similar to you who have Crohn's. And do you want to see the journeys they took? What products they took? What was their outcome? What did the cycle of recovery look like? Because we capture all of it. And so it's being able to use that data to help the next generation of patient with a new diagnosis. Does that make sense?
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think being able to look at and map that out is so valuable for anyone going through that.
Yeah.
Like I had like the most minor of health scares recently. I thought I felt a lump. So I, went in and did the whole process and, had to get an ultrasound, and it was so overpoweringly scary, and it came out fine, like no issues. But, even just going to look at that would have been, what you should expect. I was going on TikTok being like breast ultrasound, like,
Yeah.
and I can't vet those people, so that's very valuable. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, healthcare is just scary. It's like you get a diagnosis or you feel something, you feel different. And you're like, most people, first thing they do is they get kind of freaked out.
Yeah.
Like, and which is totally natural. It's normal. And our products by no means a replacement for a doctor, but let's say you do find out that your hypothesis is true and you were diagnosed with something, like you can come to us and really find support for that disease, right? And better understand what your options look like and talk to somebody who's taken that option to see what recovery look like, see what the side effects or whatever. And to me, like that information is invaluable as a person just starting those journeys.
Yeah.
And the fact that patients can for free just makes me feel very good. I love that. It's like we see a lot of incredible things happening on our product, and I just feel very honored to be a part of it. So
You're doing something you care about that's important to others, and you're making a living off of it. That's kind of the dream, right?
yeah, there's a lot. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things out, hidden in the back.
Holding this with a nice brush. We're painting it with a
Yeah,
brush.
yeah.
I know founder is an absolute shit show. I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
But your story is super inspiring. I relate to, going from food stamps to, quote unquote, making it. I admire your journey and it resonates with me a lot. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, happy to share it. And for those listening, if you want to reach out to me, please do. LinkedIn, email. Um, Happy to chat.
Thank you. Yeah. And do you have time for a couple listener questions?
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Cool. All right. So we had a couple of people write in. This one is from Steph. I'm considering my own business, but don't have the funds to take the leap and completely leave my full-time role. When did you go from sort of like a part-time to a full-time founder, and what did that transition look like?
Yeah. You know, I always tell people like there's a lot of hours in a day. There really are, right? And when we like Pat and I, my business partner and I got together and we're like, hey, I think that there's something here. It was back in like 2018 ish. And we still had our full-time jobs. Still like, we're like, hey, this idea is not fully baked, right? We got to figure out what this could look like, how we want to shape it. And so we would go and do a full-time job. And then like for me, it was like 7 p.m. when I put my kids down. But I was like, okay, from 7 p.m. to about like midnight every night, it's 5 hours. Like I'm going to dedicate 5 hours to like continue to work on this.
Mm.
And you don't have to quit your full-time job um to work on, a passion project or something that you wanted to build. Not only that, your weekends are like your biggest asset. Like use your weekend and the idea of you don't you like I really don't believe you have to quit your job to go and start something. Like
Yes.
figure out what that next thing or that next chapter in your professional career can look like. Start working on it now. Continue to do what you do day to day from your current job. And then once you start getting traction on this, it'll help go better sight as to whether or not this is going to be a successful venture. And it's a bit more baked out than if you were just to quit your job and start something new that day.
That's really good advice. Thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of people think you have to like commit to it full time in order for it to be successful. But
Yeah. No, try to hedge your bet a little bit.
I like that. I like that. Okay, next question from Alvin. What's the hardest thing about being a founder that people might not expect? I'm starting my founder journey now and trying to look out for pitfalls along the way.
It depends on where you are in the journey, because I've learned something new on every phase of the business.
Mm.
Um, the first phase, like very early stages, is make sure you set your company up right. I I literally used LegalZoom. It was a nightmare having to clean that up. So like make sure you set the company up right. And it also depends on what you want your company to be, right? If this is a company that you want to raise capital for, don't waste your time with like an S corp. Like you're gonna need a C corp. Understand that. Understand that you need to make the investment on that, and just do it now because if you do it later, the cleanup is going to be tens of thousands of dollars and a huge headache for you. Like hands down. Um, the next phase, as far as like, I made a huge mistake hiring individuals, and I would hire people that kind of fit the vibe of the company,
Mm.
and which is fine. Like you want to make sure you maintain the culture, but when you're at an early stage, you need doers. Like that's really what it is. You need to hire people that want to roll their sleeves up and actually do the work. And you need to be incredibly, you have to be incredibly hard on those early employees. Like
Yeah.
most, this has been a tough transition for me of like, you have to kind of separate the, um, the friendship that you can kind of make with some of your early employees,
Yeah.
because if they're not producing, you have to be able to cut them and let them go.
Yep.
And if you've never done that before, it's tough. And but you don't have the luxury of having somebody stick on for another 6 months as you're shelling out salary if they're not moving the needle.
Yeah.
You have to be able to make really tough decisions like that. And you know, I'll tell you this: every time I've done it, I feel shitty. and I hate it. It's the worst part of my job. But then a month later, I'm like, thank God I did that. Wish that guy or wish that person the best, but they weren't a fit here. And, now as a business, whether it's you saved runway or you opened up a new role that somebody filled in that's better. You will thank yourself down the road, but you have to be able to really make tough decisions. Even when it's like potentially a friendship that you have built with that person.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you break up with someone, you dread doing it, but then after you feel so much better.
Okay. So yeah, and then the last piece of advice is if you are raising capital, get into bed with the right people. I've been burned so many times in the VC community, and it's sadly it's a little bit the nature of that industry, but you are stuck with those people for a long time. And if you are like, "Ugh, I kind of like them, I kind of don't." I mean, depending on how desperate you are, like understand that these people are going to be with you for 10 years. And is that a relationship you want for 10 years? So,
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I'll wrap it up here because you have I'm sure, a busy day to get back to. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
yeah. Yeah, sorry if I jumped the gun on that, but yeah, feel like LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So, actually just look for my name, George Kramb. I think I'm one of the only George Krambs out there. Or you can just send me an email, just george@patientpartner.com.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show. It's been very interesting talking to you. And yeah, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, I think Brianna, this has been fun. I appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. See you.
Thanks for listening to the Career Diaries podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a 5-star review to help get word out about the show. Email Bree@careerdiariespodcast.com with your burning career questions to get them answered on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe so you never miss another conversation.